Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a video on what to be prepared for when you get a bike. I think that I already did a video on my Instagram about this. Also, my jumper's not wet. I don't know what is up with my jumper, but we'll just ignore that. So there are a lot of things to be prepared for when you are getting a motorbike. So the first one would be gear and how much it costs for good gear, because I think the way it should go when you're thinking of getting a bike is you buy the gear, then you do the lessons, then you buy a bike, or you buy the gear, buy the bike, do the lessons. But lessons are really expensive, so if you fail them, then you've already spent money on a bike that you can't use. So I feel like maybe lessons then bike is a good idea, but I say that and I did not do that, so you don't need to do that. But I think gear should always come first, because you always need gear, and it is the most expensive. Well, no, it's not the most expensive, but it is really expensive, more expensive than most people realise, for good gear, and you need good gear, especially if you're a beginner biker. So I think that should always come first. So you need to have a good helmet, a good jacket, good bottoms, good boots, good gloves. You can get like a full leather suit, or you can get like textile type things, so like armoured jeans, armoured cargos, as long as you check the rating on them. Check that AAA is the best, but AA is also good, but AAA is obviously the best. Leather is AAA. And there are some brands that have made textile stuff if you want to go for a little more casual stuff that is AAA, like Knox's new armoured jacket, or like it's like an under thing, but it's AAA, and it's minimal, like it's really minimal. You could wear it under anything. So if that's what you're looking for, then you could go for that. But leathers is always a good shout. But just good gear, so either double or AAA rated when it comes to gear. Boots, you need to get ones that will protect your ankles, like all of your feet obviously, and your ankles, because the most common injury I think when you crash a bike, most of the people I hear that crash a bike, they usually break an ankle or a leg or their feet. So I feel like having good boots or motorbike shoes or whatever you go for, as long as they protect your ankles, I think you are good. Also with the gloves, the better ones are the ones that connect the pinky to this finger, because a lot of people snap their pinky finger. They also are better if they have palm protection, because a lot of gloves I see, even if they are made by a reputable brand, people when they go down put their hands down first and the palms rip, and they get road rash on their hands. So if you can get ones that have reinforced palms, that is always good to have, as well as reinforced on the joints of your fingers and on your knuckles, because usually when people crash they go hands down first, they put their hands straight on the floor. So protecting your palms is the main priority, because obviously usually when you fall down you don't usually go with your hands down like that, and you usually end up on your knees or just flat on your front. Sometimes you will go on your back, but usually then your hands aren't as caught up in it if you're on your back. But that's why you also need really good back support, so you can get gear that has back support already in it, or you can get a back protector, which I think a lot of brands make a back protector that you can wear with the gear for extra protection, and it goes from the top of your back all the way to your tailbone, so it protects the entirety of your spine. And good knee protection, because usually someone will slide across the floor on their back or on their knees and their hands. So those are always the best points to be protecting, as well as your ankles, because they need more protection than just the gear that you have on. They also need boots, because they are sturdier and they're kind of like splints. Like if you broke your foot you would have a splint, but if you got boots covering your ankles, they will protect your ankles better. So the next thing is bike maintenance. I think this one is even less remembered than bike gear, because people just don't think about that when they're getting a bike. which is understandable if you're like really excited to get a bike. The only thing you're thinking about is getting the bike and getting the license, but you need to be able to take care of your chain, your tyres, your oil, your brake pads, everything like that, especially the chain, because that needs cleaning a lot, and you need to be able to know how to tighten it, so you also need to have the tools for that, unless you take it to a mechanic to get it tightened, but obviously it is a lot cheaper if you learn how to do it yourself, but you do need the tools for that. Yeah, the main maintenance things that people do themselves is usually checking tyre pressure, tightening and cleaning their chain, and changing their oil. So if you want to save money, instead of taking it to the mechanic every time you need something like that doing, then those 3 other main things that would be the best to know. And coolant. Sorry, I didn't think about that. Coolant is also a good one to know. Coolant is also not the hardest to change out and get sorted, so it's a good one to remember. So the next thing to think about is weather conditions, because if you get the bike in the summer and you are like obviously really excited about riding it in the summer, if you do not have another mode of transport, you really need to think about riding it in the winter, because it is obviously a lot more dangerous, and you do need to know what to do when the weather goes to shit, because it can be quite nerve-wracking, so you need to know what to do. So you need to have good awareness of the change in braking distance, the change of traction going around corners, the change of traction if you hit wet drains, or you hit wet leaves, or just leaves in general that are on the road, because if you hit a wet drain or you hit leaves, you can slip, especially if you hit it on a corner. But even if you're going in a straight line, you have every possibility of slipping. So it's good to know about that. And I can't remember what I said. Reduce traction. I can't remember what I was saying. But yeah, so you need to know how to handle the bike in shit conditions. If it is snowing or icy, I just altogether would not advise riding your bike, because that is insanely dangerous and it is almost impossible to ride when the roads are icy. You would literally have to ride about 10 miles an hour and it's just not fun. So you need to know about that when you're thinking about how great riding a bike would be in summer. If you don't have another mode of transport and you're relying on the bike, then you need to know about riding it in poorer weather conditions. You also need to know about the fact that you might need different gear for different weather conditions. So your gear needs to be waterproof, and your gear needs to still protect you if you go down in the rain. It also just needs to keep you warm. So a good thing to have is heated grips. You can get heated gear, but it is extremely expensive. So textile gear is the best way to go in my opinion, because it holds up in the rain and it keeps you warm, because it is usually more than one layer, and it also still has all the protection in it. You also need winter gloves, or if you wear them all year round then you don't need winter gloves, but winter gloves you need to have to keep your hands warm. Heated grips again are a really good shout for in the winter, because your hands will get cold, especially if you are on a sports bike or just on a bike that doesn't have the handlebar covers to keep your hands warm. So the next thing to think about is where you're going to store your bike, because if you do not have a secure location, it is very likely that someone might steal it. Depending on the area you live in, obviously, but you need to have good locks, or you need to have somewhere to store it overnight. I keep mine in a locked garage, and if I go out and I have to leave it somewhere where I'm not confident that it will be okay, I obviously put the steering lock on, but that can be snapped really easily, so don't just rely on steering lock. I also have a chain. It's actually right here. I have a big chain to put around the wheel. Another good thing to have when you have a chain is to cement a I can't remember what they're called, but you put the chain through it and it's much harder for them to break that if it's cemented into the floor. Another good thing to have is a disc lock, especially the ones with alarms, because the alarm is blaringly loud. It is so loud that if you leave your bike outside your house, you will hear if someone moves it, because it comes with a wire that goes on the handlebars, and if someone moves the bike an inch or just tries to move the wire, the alarm will go off, and it will go off very loudly. So it is good. That is a very good thing to have. But obviously if you don't have your bike stored outside your house, it's obviously not as effective, but they also are harder to get through. But a really good lock to have if you have to leave it outside overnight is Light Lock, because the amount of good reviews I've seen from them where people have had people try to steal their bikes and they cannot get through the Light Lock because it is that good. So if you are looking for a lock, Light Lock is really good. That's a very good, something you need to be aware of when you buy the bike, is you need to know. That's also something that you might want to buy in advance to buying before you buy the bike, is the security stuff, because that is also expensive. You can't cheap out on the security measures, especially if you are leaving your bike outside at night, because in most areas there is someone that will steal the bike, even if you put the steering lock on, because that is very easily snapped. So you cannot just rely on only the steering lock. Another thing, a smaller thing to think about, not smaller, but I think most people remember this, but is to make sure that you tax the bike when you buy it, because sometimes it can slip your mind when you get the paperwork and it's handed over, it's no longer taxed. You need to remember to tax it or sawn it if you're not planning on using it straight away. But that is a very good thing to remember, because it almost slipped my mind and I almost forgot about it until I got a letter in the post to remind me. So you will get reminded, but it's just me reminding you that you need to remember about tax. Another thing that might not have crossed your mind is how expensive insurance can be, especially for a first-time rider, because it is a bomb. It is so horrendously expensive for insurance for any bike, even if it's a 50cc or a 125. So if you are thinking about getting a bike, you need to save for the gear, the lessons, the security devices to protect your bike, unless you have a locked place to leave it at night, as well as the actual bike and insurance. So that is a very, very big thing that you need to remember, because you could get the gear, you could get the license, you could get the bike, and then you don't have any money left for the insurance. So those are the things you need to think about when it comes to the actual bike and like actually getting on the bike and being able to ride it. Another thing you might want to think about is confidence versus overconfidence, because I think I wrote about this when it comes to newbie riders. If you are overconfident, you are much more likely to crash, because if you hit a corner at a faster speed than you're expecting to, you will not make it around the corner. You will either have to brake really hard or you will go straight forward. And there was a guy that rode with one of my friends who was overly confident, and he ended up rear-ending one of my friends and and my friend broke his foot in about seven places, because the guy was right up his ass, going faster than he should have been when he was lane splitting. So do not be overconfident, no matter how much you think you can handle the bike. Just be prepared. Another thing to think about when it comes to bikes is one that I have spoken about many times, but I will add it in anyway, is road awareness, because cars will not see you, or they just blatantly won't look, especially when you're lane splitting. So you need to have eyes everywhere. You need to be watching all of the cars when you're lane splitting, because if they're going to change lane, then you need to be prepared to stop if they change lane. And you need to slow down even if there is a junction and it's traffic light controlled, you still need to slow down, and you need to watch all of the junctions, because there are plenty of people who will run a red light or who will speed up to get through an amber light. So you need to be prepared to stop. So no matter whether the light is green for you, just be aware that many people will do stupid things at red lights, and many bikers get the brunt end of it and will end up getting hurt because other people cannot drive properly. What most bikers say is that you need to assume that all of the cars are out to get you, because although they might not mean to be, they are. They do not look. They do not expect you to be in the places that you might be, because bikers can be in the blind spots of cars. Bikers can, they're small enough that people won't see them, and they also are, there are also just ignorant people on the road that won't look. They will just drive along and completely zone out and not have any awareness of anybody around them. But it's usually motorbikes that get the brunt end of that, and it's usually motorbikes who end up getting hurt because of other people's ignorance. That is not to say that all bike accidents are car drivers' fault, but usually they are. Just basically, anything that you wouldn't think about in a car, you have to think about everything on a bike. Literally everything. Coming towards the end now, but I think some good tips to have is to keep a toolkit on you at all times, which can include spanners, zip ties, just little things that will help you. Oh, a tyre plug kit, puncture repair kit. Just little things that would get you far enough to get home or to get to the nearest mechanic. And also a first aid kit in case you crash or someone else crashes, so you're more likely to be prepared for it. I think that I have written a few notes. I have written a few notes. No, I have written a few notes, and I think I've come to the end of it. But I think what you need to know is that you will make mistakes. It is inevitable. You make mistakes when you learn to drive a car. It's no different with a bike. You will make mistakes, just don't let it discourage you, and be aware of other car drivers on the road, and be aware of the costs of everything when you are considering buying a bike, because they are way more expensive than you think. Although people like to say they're cheaper on fuel, they're more expensive in other ways. So make sure that you are budgeting for everything. Make sure you have enough money for everything before you buy one. But I think that is all for today. I think I covered everything. I probably have forgotten a few things, but I think I've got pretty much everything down. I hope this helps you if you are considering getting a bike, and don't let other car drivers discourage you from getting one. Just be aware of the risk before you buy a bike. That's everything for today. Thank you for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and comment down below to let me know what you would like to see and what you thought of this video. Thank you for watching. Bye.